Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. Indeed, welcome back to work, that is. If you're watching this, you're probably at work or you're at home, but everybody has gone out to work, unlike yesterday when it was Democracy Day. And the themes yesterday that we sort of were drawing on, we'll continue with that today because we are in the spirit, so to speak. Democracy in Nigeria, the progress so far. Clearly, there's much more to be done, as has even been, said by the administration, the ruling party, and the government. But then, as they have put it out, perhaps we can corroborate that by our own observations. Maybe they have made appreciable progress. That's the official perspective, because that's the way it is. That's the way they see it. Maybe we should take a look. First of all, I haven't even introduced you, so maybe I should do that first so we get a bit more perspective. Sorry about that. Mr. Philip Agbese, he's a researcher and international humanitarian practitioner, as well as a human, he has very keen interest in human rights law. Thank you very, very much for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure.
Indeed. And sitting right next to him, I don't know that there's any danger whatsoever involved. Nevertheless, Mr. Adeboye Kalejaye Adeboye, public affairs analyst and politician.
Good morning.
We should not be alarmed.
No cause for alarm.
No cause for alarm.
No alarm for cause.
Because the very day after Democracy Day, you show us red color. I don't know if you are, who are you? Are you showing a red card?
Don't worry. Let's go ahead.
When we get there, we'll know.
Yeah.
And Mr. Ode Sabo Ode, who is a national convener of Coalition for Nigeria. Thank you very much for coming. We're seeing you again in a very short time, and it's a delightful thing for us. In fact, let me start with you.
Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. National convener, Coalition for Nigeria. Sabo Ode, how do you see it? It's a work in progress. It has been so. Our whole, the focus of this country to better the lives of our people has been an ongoing project. This administration took over the project, the baton, 3 years ago, and you heard the president's speech yesterday. Give me your impressions about how well, or the progress that has been made in furthering or deepening democracy since the arrival of the Buhari administration.
From a very difficult situation to a perfect situation. That's how the government is going.
From a very difficult and challenging situation to an almost perfect.
Perfect situation.
Because I don't think we can have perfect.
No,
it doesn't matter how much you give us, we want some more.
Better,
Yes.
yeah.
So things are definitely better now, in your estimation,
Of course.
than when we took over.
Yes, if you look at the trends from before the 2015 elections, you will know that we were heading for a very dangerous fall. And the government came in and have managed to arrest most of the issues. And we're grateful to God for that.
Indeed, I'm going to come back to you. Mr. Kalejaye, Mr. Adeboye, how do you see it?
Well, we must remind Nigerians that when this administration came on board, there were 24 months arrears of salaries owned by some states. So it means that what the administration first and foremost did was to rescue the situation of workers by ensuring that there were bailouts for various states to at least cushion that effect and pay workers. That's where the journey started from.
So it's going back to part of the damage that had been done over the ensuing years.
Is a damage control. We must also remind our listeners and viewers that the Buhari administration came from the position of a very weak economy, very weak security situation, very weak reputation for our country as at the time when they came in. Today, we are on the rise internationally in terms of reputation. Even the American president, who has adjudged to be very critical about nations, countries, and positions, also in receiving Mr. President Buhari, also acknowledged that he's done some good work. So it's also to say that the administration has moved and restore stability and credibility to our nation. And then once you have that as a nation, it will encourage international investments. What we were moving on, we're also moving away from a mono economy to a poly economy. We really were dependent solely on oil. And we also come to understand that today, agriculture is becoming to pick up. We're beginning to do some local rice, courtesy the federal government, the state government of Lagos, the government of Lagos, the Lake Rice. The price of rice has been forced down. The amount of money spent on importing rice has reduced. So our agrarian economy is coming up.
Okay.
So for me...
You will have time to go into the details, but just an opening salvo to just get sort of general impressions. And Mr. Gwese, you are a researcher, you have worked abroad, and so no doubt you'll be aware of perspectives from abroad. But thank God, you being a Nigerian, you also have your own direct impressions from engaging with the system. Give me your impressions on the journey so far, talking from a democracy, a deepening of democracy point of view in the Buhari administration.
Well, life generally is about dreams and realities. For every government, of course, there will be dreams and there will be realities. Talking about dreams, what people actually want, I think every nation, people actually want a situation where sometimes they don't work, they are paid, the roads are there, you know.
Oh dear.
And everything is actually in place. The situation we all pray for, we see in the dream. So coming from the dream perspective, I think the president has not been able, because government is not a magic. So for some Nigerians, there will be some sort of disappointment. But for those who are actually interested in reality, you know, the physical things that we can actually see, what is available and what we can actually do. For such persons, it is very easy to conclude that the government has been able to meet the expectation of the people. And looking at that, the president actually came with an agenda.
No, but, sorry, sir. Forgive me for interrupting you. Yeah. I wanted to know your impressions.
Yes, my impression is that I'm a realist. And for the purpose of reality, where I'm coming from, I think to a large extent, Mr. President and the administration in general has been able to meet the realities.
Oh.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because
you know, okay.
Yes.
Because from what I was hearing before, I thought I got the impression. Now I know I'm mistaking that whoever was saying what you are just saying now must be a dreamer.
Exactly. No. What I'm saying is anyone who, of course, was expecting a nation that, like those people who talk about ₦1 to $1 and all of that, of course.
To change overnight.
Yes.
Anyone expecting that?
Yes.
Not being realistic.
Yes, not being realistic.
Okay,
yes.
okay.
But for realists, we understand that, yes, things must move gradually. And in terms of that gradual movement from a negative perception to a positive perception, it has been a slow and steady journey with the government. And for me, I don't really look at the general things that people want to see, because I know that Dubai, you know, is actually a dream that started gradually, and people are building. And as realists, we must understand that government must build gradually and continue with whatever they are doing. If you look at the completion of projects that are started by other past administration, you understand that, yes, we're actually moving somewhere, and the president is making good effort. Secondly, I take the president by the promises made to Nigerians, because I believe that it was on the basis of those promises made to Nigerians that he was actually voted. And for so many persons who didn't know him before that time, they had to, people who were not 18, you know, during his first coming, they had to listen to his manifesto. And this manifesto has to do with anti-corruption, the war against insurgency, and the economy. And these three put together, you assess them, you know that for the first time, we are blessed in Nigeria to have a leader who will say, I am going to do this, and he's actually able to do something about it.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Let me come back to you, if I could, Mr. Ode. It seems, if they're listening to this from the presidency, this is really going well, you know, but that kind of a thing. But as you are aware, there are critics who, by and large, what they are saying, never mind the rationale, because never mind whatever the rationale is, but what they are saying is that we haven't come as far as we ought to have come. In other words, they think this administration has been slow. But from the general perception here, it seems to me that people are understanding, because nobody is saying Mr. President was sitting down in his office twiddling his thumbs all that while. And so from the kind of comments I'm getting, it looks as if the administration will probably be quite happy to see that, well, people seem to be understanding. Nobody said anything is perfect. Nobody said we've done all our work. But people generally seem to be understanding. Now, do you agree with those, I won't call them naysayers, that's their impression, that what they, I've heard this expression, what they actually voted Mr. President for, I'm afraid they haven't seen it yet. That is how they put it. I'm afraid we haven't seen it yet. What would you say to those people?
I will say they have got it all wrong. One thing that I know about this government is that they do not wish to be too loud about what they do.
Okay. Okay.
You know, and I think it's also
But is that a good ploy?
No, it's
sir?
not. It's
is
not
that
nice.
a good ploy?
No, it's not nice. I think they should sell it.
We've had a complaint that this administration doesn't talk to us.
But in recent times, prior to Democracy Day, you have seen that those organs that should be tell Nigerians what the government is doing have picked up suddenly, and they are doing a good job.
Okay.
We've been able to see that in areas of transport, in road construction, in agriculture, people are trying to let Nigerians know, sensitizing Nigerians now to know that this government is actually doing some of these things and are doing it positively. Mm-hmm. You know, let me tell you, period to this government, the politics that we play is politics of chop me down. Whether you are doing well, Nigerians are fond of saying very negative things about you, especially if there's one area of hunger around them. And for some of us, we believe that we should do things right, even if you have to fill up your stomach. You know, and we just found out that Nigerians are busy. So most of them who are the naysayers are just busy saying things that are not right. They don't have facts, and they're busy being anti-government.
Thank you. One of the complaints from the society at large, and really I should qualify that by saying those who call in to us, never mind society at large, those that call in to us, has been that whereas they can see the efforts of the administration, they are a bit concerned about the pace. For instance, in Mr. President's, it's not President Buhari's individual war, but the administration's war against corruption, they would have liked to have seen a niftier pace. They would have liked to have seen perhaps convictions, because every Nigerian knows that a lot of wrong was done. And the least that they would have expected in the past 2 or 3 years is that we should be able to point to some convictions to show that what Mr. President said at the beginning, which is that we can't keep on like this. We can't keep on doing what we're doing. When you now look at, Mr. President can't, as when he was head of state, he's now president, he can't just throw people in jail anyhow, no matter what he knows. The challenges in that area, Mr. President is one, but he's surrounded by a whole system. You've got the National Assembly, for instance, the legislature. You've got the judiciary in particular. And at one time, Mr. President, in frustration, had been moaned that he wished he was getting more cooperation from the judiciary. Do you think those organs are also at par with, shall we say, the progress that you guys have said you've seen in the administration generally?
It's obviously not. You see, and to my mind, the way to fight corruption is like you need to look back and then see what is ongoing. In terms of what is ongoing, I think the president and the administration has been able to plug a lot of loopholes in terms of corruption. The way of looking back is also sensible for the administration to apply the principle of optimalism. Because the degree at which you look back is the degree at which you turn around. When you look back, that degree of turning back is also it can be an effortless exercise. So sometimes you do not say too much energy in looking back.
Okay.
Because sometimes to right what is wrong takes more than what the eyes can meet. It's also important to also say that, like you have alluded, to say that this is Mr. President. It's no longer Mr. Head of State. The draconian military dictatorship principles that were applied in those years cannot be applied any longer. No. The world is already globally civilized. If you run too fast, people will draw you back and say you are running too fast. If you walk too slow, people must draw. In terms of penalties and applications of the law to fighting people who have done wrongly, you must also follow the principle of the law.
Which is frustrating to a lot of Nigerians.
And they say justice denied is justice delayed is justice denied.
Exactly, that's
but in most cases, you come to understand that you must follow the process, no matter how long it takes. But the bottom line is that putting people on trial is in itself punitive. You may not have seen so many convictions, but one thing nobody wants to have is a case. But one thing nobody also wants to lose is the same case. Nobody wants to have a case, but nobody wants to lose it, wants to have it. So the fact that you are under trial,
to plead your case.
You have to plead
and
your
that
case.
can often
and that
take
process
time.
itself is traumatic.
Okay, I'm going to come back
Your
to you.
freedom is infringed, directly or indirectly. So to me, it may be a slow pace, but then slow and steady wins the race. It's not as if we'll not get there.
Okay.
It could take time.
Okay. Mr. Gwese, what do you think about the state of our democracy? And I ask this question against the backdrop of what's going on the political horizon. Let's, for the moment, leave all the other aspects, terribly important infrastructure, economy, and all of that. But the way politics has been going, you've seen that there have been challenges with primaries and congresses. Even within the same party, you find that there's a lot of disagreement. In fact, the very way this administration took off, there was a cowboy element to it that was quickly, as it were, I put cowboy in quotes, you know what I mean, where the party wasn't happy with what was going on, especially in the National Assembly. And since then, there's been an interesting, let me put it that way, relationship between the legislature and the executive, even as each part, especially the National Assembly, has been saying that, look, it has a job to do. It's not about being liked or being, there is work to be done. What do you think, because a lot of people, and bear in mind also the incongruity we have, where we actually have opposition party member in key places in the National Assembly, and you can't really do very much without the National Assembly.
In 2015, the president, then General Muhammadu Buhari, told Nigerians that he is now, that he has become a rebranded Democrat. I think at that time, not many took him seriously for that statement. But activities preceding the statement and his assumption of office as president may have proven so many wrong. And I take you back to the situation in 2015. The first two tests for Mr. President was the election in Bayelsa and Kogi State. You recall that a candidate of his party was actually relying on votes from a certain local government area where he was supposed to pull through and win the ballot against 8 other local government areas. And people were actually waiting to see Mr. President's reaction to that. He allowed the electoral process to play its natural course. And at the end of the day, a member of the other party emerged, which really proved to Nigerians and the rest of the world that, yes, of course, we have a new brand person as president of Nigeria. I take you back again to the National Assembly imbroglio. And the concern of the APC as a political party. Mr. President, you recall that some leaders of the party had wanted Mr. President to make a declaration that a certain person must become the Senate president. And a letter was purportedly to have been written by the president inviting people for a meeting. And he said, no, I am not interested. The National Assembly, as a college of people, equal people, should be able to choose their leader. Of course, the APC as a party was not happy with it, but along the line we heard...
I think the famous line at that time was that I can work with anybody.
Exactly, exactly. And that tells you, you know, that, of course, he's a very democratic person by that conduct.
Okay.
Yes, to say I can work with anybody. Because, of course, like I continue to tell people, Mr. President, I think at that time understood that who becomes the Senate president is not going to be a sole decision of the APC as a party, because it is a house that has to do with other political parties. And for Mr. President to insist that the choice of his party must be, so I give it to him that yes, he played
that was part of
yes, and even
deepening democracy.
Fantastic.
And setting an example.
Exactly. If you go further, and you know, times without number, people continue to say that people are witch hunting others and all of that. And if you look at it, times without number, Nigerians want the quick win approach. For instance, the case of the Senate president at the Code of Conduct Tribunal. So many persons waited, they had expected that the presidency would doctor whatever judgment will come from the Code of Conduct. And because of the public perception that it was an issue between the executive and the legislature, of course, one would expect a judgment the other way around. But the judiciary was able to take their time and do the needful.
Actually,
when we also talked about the war against corruption.
Yeah, I'm going to come. I'm going to come there because I want to take other perspectives on this. And when you say that some might have expected the presidency to doctor, well, that must be a personal opinion, because maybe you're looking at what has gone in the past. Generally you can't doctor.
Okay. Well, let me put it.
You can't doctor. That's my thinking.
No. The situation we inherited in Nigeria before now was a situation where people sit down in executive offices, and of course you can tell the kind of judgment you get from this.
With that explanation, I take the point. But since the Buhari people came, and apparently that's not going to be their style. I understand that.
Yes, because if you see, so many persons have been actually arraigned before court, and of course you see situations where the government is arraigning people and the same court is saying, no, we are granting bail, you have to go home and all of that. You know, the general view of the people is that the government is not working together with the judiciary. And I continue to tell people that one of the beauties of democracy is the concept of separation of powers. If there's no separation of power, if the executive and the legislature and the judiciary, they begin to work together, it therefore means that the police can stand up any day and say, we don't like Mr. Yomi Folari. And of course,
I don't know why people always use me as an example. Instead of you to say they don't like Philip Agbese, you won't say it like that. I don't understand. Instead of you to say that the police can get up and say, I don't like Philip Agbese. No.
Okay, anyway, it's dangerous to use Philip Agbese.
Oh, there you go.
but what I'm trying to say,
I get the point. I was just joking. I was just joking. I get the point.
Okay, the beautiful thing about what we are doing in Nigeria at the moment is the institutional development.
Okay.
Institutions are being built and be developed, and if we look at the developed democracies, it's just nothing but products of well-developed institutions.
Okay, let me cross over to Mr. Ode and ask, because there's that aspect, maybe I'm at fault here, because when I was asking a question, I think I alluded 3 or 4 aspects to it. Let me just take one of those aspects, and I want to look at the state of the politics, the way it is played. First of all, against the backdrop of the way it used to be played and what we have now. Right now, you know that the ruling party itself, much as we are talking about commending them right now, that's what you gentlemen seem to be saying, it's not as if it's at peace. I believe if they might not have finished, but they're busy mediating. I was reading the other time that now that they are going to be meeting with Vice President Oshibajo, that was before the meeting, that they were actually coming up with fresh complaints that needed to be addressed. Give me what you think about the fact that the ruling party has these challenges. Other parties also have their own challenges, but that the ruling party has its own has these challenges. Would you say it's all part of the developmental process?
Evolving politics.
Evolving politics.
Yes.
But it's a very special and unique situation we have in the APC, where there are quote-unquote strange bedfellows.
Yeah.
And we all know the reason why that happened.
Yes. Now, listen, in every situation, the ability to disagree and at the end of the day, come back to agree to yourself makes us stick.
Okay.
You know, what is happening, especially coming from the congresses that have taken places in is like you said, the congregations of different bedfellows, and
for the reasons we all know about.
Yes.
Even right now,
and suddenly,
but people are still thinking now about maybe we need to get a mega party together to come back and face this administration. I don't know that that is necessarily much different from the work that APC itself did to, as it were, at the ballot boxes, get rid of the previous administration.
Yes. You see, what is happening in APC, for instance, is also happening in the other parties. But because APC is the ruling party, of course, you will find it being pronounced on media houses and all that, newspapers. So I don't think it's strange.
Okay.
No, I don't think
it comes with the territory, right? That's what you're saying.
Yes, it's not strange. And like I've said, the ability for them to disagree and then at the end of the day, come to agree, makes them tick, makes them stronger. And that's also another symptom of a healthy competition for me. For me, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is the, how do you see it, Mr. Adeboye? Well, first of all, for you have a definite interest, which I think is different from both of your colleagues here, in that you actually are a member of the ruling party.
It's, I was also a party to the congresses, and I'm proud to say that. And I'm to say that what we witnessed was what was quite exigent, what was quite necessary. You know, the first agenda was to say, let's have a tenure elongation. And then some, prominent politicians in APC, I don't want to mention names, stood and said, we must have our congresses and elect new officers. There shouldn't be tenure elongation because we must lead by examples. And I then we had that Congress. It was acrimonious in some instances, in some places. It was quite tortuous, it was quite, difficult. But at the end of it all, we came up with something. And of course, it could not be final. Resolutions will still keep on going. We'll keep on consulting, we'll keep on amending. But the bottom line is that democracy has come to play. The internal democracy within the party is becoming more deepening. The fact is that you can aspire to be whatever you want to be in the political parties if you have what it takes to be. So for me, it's quite necessary, it's quite desirable, it's quite good for our democracy. And to also say that for the aggrieved parties, there must, you see, when two people go to a contest or you go to a battlefield, there will be victors, there will be vanquished. There will be people who would, feel that they have been shortchanged, whether rightly.
I think politically we don't use vanquished. Because people say in politics, no victor, no vanquished.
Yes, that will say in
we just had a disagreement, which has been resolved.
Of course. So what I'm trying to say is that at the end of it all...
Are you saying there are vanquished people in the APC?
At the end of it all, we have had people who have had their grievances.
Okay.
We've had people who had recorded what they think is satisfactory to them.
Okay.
But midway, we'll meet ourselves, either on the right or on the left. For those who are still complaining up to now, we are not unaware that there are moves by some people who are within the party trying to see that if we are not satisfied, we can pull out of the party.
Yeah.
But the question to ask is, if they pull out of the party, where are they going? Wherever they are going, they will also have to start afresh. And if we are not starting afresh, they will also meet people whose interests will not, agree with their own interests. So every marriage will have its own ups and downs. Every relationship will have its own ups and downs. So to me, it's better to remain within and fight rather than opt out, because the grass is always not greener on the other side. Okay. And don't burn bridges. Because if you burn bridges, you don't know when you will need the bridge.
I wonder if, I got to go to break now, but I wonder if I might paraphrase that aspect of what you just said of, where are they going? Wherever they are going, they're going to still be in Nigeria.
Yes.
It's a Nigerian thing.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter where you go.
You are
in as long as you're still in Nigeria.
You are there.
You are going to meet Nigerians.
Yes.
And we'll come back and develop on that. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. Welcome back, still with this conversation on democracy that we started yesterday with Mr. Philip Agbese, Mr. Kale Jai Adeboye, and Mr. Sabo Ode. And we were looking at, really, it's about we know where we've been coming from. We went through that whole that experience as Nigerians. We collectively said we want a change, and so PMB came on board, and his party, they came on board. And I would imagine that the president had very, very high hopes of stamping out corruption. The president would not have thought about doing it overnight, but I imagine that the president is probably going to be surprised at how difficult it has turned out to be, the kind of corruption fighting back stereotype that we hear about. But it looks that it's not everybody that is eager for things to be different from the way it used to be, and yet they have to keep on working within such a milieu. Can that be responsible for some of the things that we complain about, the pace that it should have been niftier, but it isn't?
Well, in tackling corruption,
For example?
we must also be mindful that those who steal are not foolish. No man wakes up in the morning to dip his fingers into the treasury to take money without
having a contingency plan.
Exactly, not even contingency plans, but having these things go through the rugs of check and balances. Okay. It's just that there's still a loophole somewhere, and where that money is not appropriately applied. Okay. And you see, in most cases, they still go further to make presentations that seem to make things look like those things are in place.
And so that's the corruption that attitude is still continuing, because we might have, in an idealistic state of mind, a euphoric state of mind, have thought that, oh, Buhari and his colleagues are now in charge, no more corruption, no more stealing, you do so at your own peril. No, that's not what we have.
No, I think that is what we have, because if you look at some of the situations we have had to contend with in the past around the administration, you see that a couple of persons who actually didn't follow due process, in doing a few things, they've been excused, and trials are ongoing. And
I like that expression, they've been excused.
Yes, they've been excused.
To be polite about it.
Yes, they've been excused from government. And of course, there's this feeling, okay, if we take it from the things that we used to see in the past, today we all know that it is impossible for Nigerians to live like people who get miracle money.
Okay.
Yes, okay. And that is actually responsible for some of the expressions of anger that we have seen, because those who are used to, dipping their fingers into the system can no longer...
As somebody put it, the turning off of the tap.
Yes.
That once Buhari's regime turned the tap off, there will be people who are angry.
Yes, so these people, sometimes are the one who organize people to say the things that they do, like the organized expression of frustration. They actually instigate some of the things that we hear. But we know very well that one, the essence of fighting corruption is actually to build on the essence of life, the dignity of mankind. Because corruption breeds poverty, it breeds insecurity, it breeds all forms of negative impact on a society.
Yeah, Buhari people know that. Buhari himself and his people know that. Yes. But the person who is actually doing it does not see all these things you are seeing.
Yes, and that is why sometimes I get marveled or confused at the way the ordinary Nigerian, reacts. I told a friend of mine recently, I said, corruption has no friend, it has no religion. where people stay, they are all united. And you see sometimes we begin to get a feel of ethnic or religious coloration when it has to do with who has stolen money, who is being prosecuted. For instance, if you want to charge a man to court for stealing money, you see people with placards who come and they begin to sing, he's taking our own to court because he's our man. And the question is, in which society, in which African society is stealing allowed or is stealing our own?
That brings me to another question that I wanted to raise, and let me bring that question to Mr. Ode. I wanted to ask you your estimation of how involved we, the people, have been in furthering and deepening democracy. Let's, for the moment, leave the politicians. We know the standards that we should be holding them to. But the rest of us, because how much have we cooperated with have we changed our attitude? Have we changed? Because the point has been made that it's not only corrupt politicians that can be corrupt, and that corruption often takes two to tango.
Yeah.
So we, the people, what's your estimate, or what's your impression? Have we changed from where we used to be, looking for the quick buck, coming up to you and say, well, now that you are there, see what you can do for me, and so on and so forth, that kind of a thing?
Fortunately, Nigerians are beginning to understand that the game...
Let me come back to you because you are in studio. Reverend Dominic is spending money, is on the line. Okay. So let me not burn his credit. Good morning, Reverend Dominic.
Good morning, Chief Yori. How are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Good morning to all your guests.
Indeed.
Good morning.
Yori, there's impression... Do I go on?
Yes, please.
There's impression I want to correct made by one of your guests there, that the National Assembly, the judiciary, the executive don't supposed to work together. That there should be no harmony in carrying out government businesses. I totally disagree with it. The principle of democracy in party politics, and the party do everything humanly possible to control a National Assembly, is for them to have grip of understanding. Now, if you have majority in the both National Assembly, your bills, your philosophies, your plans, and your projects can work easy without hindrance. And the other way around, there's opposition who want to maybe hinder you not to do that. But there could be understanding between the party and the majority. But for you to say that somebody has majority in National Assembly and his bill cannot pass without ease, for you to say that somebody has a majority in National Assembly, every policy will be fighted by the same party, I think is the horror. It is where two elephants is fighting. The grass is suffering. That's supposed to be harmony. Let me give you an example. In corruption, every one of them in power supposed to agree that corruption will fight frontally. But why Bokane Sariki is talking about due process in fighting corruption, and the president is talking about going to fight corruption headlong? Where do you see harmony? No nation works that way. That's why you have a National Assembly that have majority of ruling party. There must be harmony for things to work well. Number three, Yori, things have not changed. Menak was disappeared in government of Goodluck Jonathan and appeared. Menak appeared in government of Buhari and disappeared. So what is different? Yes, I could see efforts of Mr. Buhari fighting corruption, but it is one man riot squad. For we to fight corruption like China, everybody must come to one page and say, corruption is corruption, is stealing, not even corruption. We give you the name only, thief, parawo. The corruption is the English name. When we say someone is corrupt in Nigeria today, they pose because it's like, it's a colorful name. But when you say someone is only, when you say someone is a thief, when you say someone is a parawo, it cannot shame. So we must fight it that way. Okay. There must be harmony. There must unity purpose. There must be Nigerian dream where everybody in government should pursue, not the way we're doing now. Thank you and God bless you. Indeed.
Thank you very much for calling in. Well, I wouldn't mind if my question can be redirected to what Dominic has just said. If you care to go in that direction, because he's making an observation that he disagrees, he can't understand why we don't have harmony. And I think I was happy that he also added that it doesn't mean that one is rubber stamping the other.
It depends on the perspective that, like he was mentioning, the presidency or the National Assembly is understanding what the issues are from.
But I think the main point he was making, sir,
But-
was that
but
look, you have a
ordinarily-
majority. A ruling party
yeah.
has a majority in the National
They
Assembly.
should, there should be a working synergy.
Yes,
They
which
should be
is absent, as you well. Senate President Saraki says it isn't necessarily so, but
You know,
that's the way
one of
you
the
see it.
you see, we need to look back and see how these bodies were constituted, like the National Assembly. And some of us are worried that that harmony doesn't exist in all the activities of government. Like the Speaker said, there should be synergy in all the arms of government, at least for the purpose of delivering dividends of democracy to the people. You understand? But we see where at one point there are sharp disagreements,
Yes.
and some of us are uncomfortable with it.
So much so that people have even remarked that APC doesn't need any opposition. It has its own internal opposition.
Yes,
And that it's really giving the real opposition a heck of a
most,
break.
Most of the time, it's not from the position of the presidency that disagreements arise.
No.
It's usually from the National Assembly.
And that is exactly the point that is being
And
made.
we can also find out why this is so.
Okay.
Some of them.
Well, okay. Benga in Abuja, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Thank you for
And
calling
good
in.
morning, gentlemen there.
Sure.
Good morning.
Yes, our democracy have grown, and we are in the right direction. The speed may not be as it ought to be, but there are evidences that we are moving.
Okay.
If the military have not come in 1983, we should have advanced more than this. One way or the other, we are learning and we are correcting our mistakes. It wasn't like this in 1999. Now, everybody is very conscious of what is happening. You can't easily pull wool over anybody. Now, people are asking for it. The youth are now taking the bull by the horn. I believe that if we continue like this, the next 20 years, we'll appreciate it more.
Indeed.
Concerning the parties, I'm telling that the multi-party system is the best for us now. Our democracy is not yet mature to have a two-party system, because now it is the interest, not the ideology, are driving the politician now. Our policy is being driven by interest. And by the time you create a two-party system, you will see that it may eventually lead to a one-party state, because the party in power, everybody wants to rush there to take part of the goodies. But when there are multi-party system, they are aggrieved, and those who do not like what is happening because their interests are not taken can easily flow or march and sit. And that's what we are seeing now. A third force is coming in. You see the NPDP telling the APC that, look, either you do this or we pull out. That is, we can accommodate that for now. But I'm believing that the gain is more than the losses.
All right, then.
We are moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I like that. So for him, for Benga, the cup is actually half full rather than half empty. Now, maybe you could pick up the question that I wanted to be aired a bit. That is the part of the citizenry in all of this. Is it your impression that the citizenry is just sit down looking, or that they are actually up and doing and are grabbing at this change?
I must say that citizens' participation in partisan politics has increased quite tremendously. And this has been facilitated by so many indices, so many factors. One, the media. All this we are doing is participatory democracy. The media is doing a lot of advocacy. They're doing a lot of education. The social media also, apart from the print and electronic media. The social media has become so active, there are some abuses. But whether you like it or not, everybody is being watched. People are watching you even from the minutest part of your operations. So people are beginning to take part. People are responding to the principle of what touches all must be debated by all. All of us are getting involved. People have become more critical about their society. Those that are not even, those that are lukewarm, are beginning to feel that if you don't take part If you have nothing, you can't rule, you can't govern, and you have nothing to say about those who govern you, will suffer the reign of idiots. So people are becoming more curious. And then, but the only area where I still see where we need to improve upon is about our elections, about how do people see elections. Do they see monetization of elections as real elections? Must people continue to expect that there must be, there must be gratifications?
And is it still a do or die affair?
Before they vote? Why is it that people still don't want to vote except they are giving money?
And that's why I was
they are
saying
giving
what is the part
incentive.
of we the
So what I'm
citizenry?
saying is that what is left for us to do now is for us to be able to vote our conscience.
Okay.
It's for us to be able to look at credible candidates. It's even for us to look beyond the party. When you're looking at the party to vote, you must also look at the candidate.
But that will also...
Somebody wants to govern you. Have you asked a question? What has that person done within your community? What kind of job has he done?
So I can safely, from what you are saying, sir, sorry to interrupt you, I can safely say that from what you are saying, the citizenry hasn't come along yet in terms of changing from where they used to be into now. They're still pretty much in the old mode.
What I'm saying is that we've had some improvements.
Okay.
The area where we need major improvement now is for people to be much more critical about those who represent them.
That's about the mindset.
Yes.
I'm going to come back to that question of mindset.
Yes.
But I want to thank Mr. Abayo. Is it Gbenga in Abuja or Abayomi in Abuja? No, I think it is Abayomi in Ikorodu, Lagos. Good morning, Mr. Abayomi.
Yeah, hello. Good morning, Mr. Polari, and good morning, gentlemen of the panel.
Good morning.
Yes, I'd like to make a contribution to the issue. I think generally that we've done well in the last 19 years. I mean, we've been able to change a government in its first term. That's a big achievement considering where we're coming from. But right now, I think what we are paying for, I mean, the issues we're having now, is as a result of the naivete, of political naivete, if I may say, of the president. I think it wasn't a very, very smart move. One to have said that it could work anybody. Okay? Politics is about interest. I'm sure he had his own programs, and there was no way they could just have assumed that anyone in the party would have satisfied him. And I think another problem that the APC has also had has been the chairman, outgoing chairman, Oyego. The issue of party supremacy has always been an issue in Nigeria. So once we are able to just do this, at some point, I know people gravitate generally towards their natural habitat, and we can hope for a more balanced party structures and a better democracy. So thank you very much.
Indeed, thank you very much for calling in. And when Mr. President says when he said he can work with anybody, the understanding most people had was that, yeah, if everything is transparent and is out on the level and the result is the way what it is, then we can understand you're working with that. But we had a situation where people were sleeping in their car overnight, unknown to everybody, in order to have. I mean, so those are kind of, I don't know if you want to call that politics, but maybe it was strategy. But there are people who think, maybe it's not a word that they use, but people who think that something was hijacked. And so in that context, people feel, whereas it's a lofty sentiment that I can work with anybody, it's not anybody anyhow he emerges. That's what some people would have thought. Not, but that's... Yakub, good morning, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jerry. And then good morning to the gentleman in the studio.
Good morning.
Yes, we have never moved fast the way we expected to move, but there is some certain thing in place for Nigerians to say that Mr. President is working. You see, Chiviari, when we are talking about the corruption, I'm looking towards a time whereby the special court will be set out for the corrupt people, so that, because people are telling us that...
but sorry, Yakub, sorry, this corruption you're talking, it's democracy we're talking of. But
well, it's part of the democracy, sir.
Okay. I just wanted to emphasize,
Yes, it's part of democracy, because we cannot have democracy without not trying the corrupt people in the society.
Okay.
Are you getting it, sir? See, this time around, Mr. President, in 3 years, I don't want to talk about 16 years of the last administration. Let me slow it down to 3 years of Mr. President. You know my position all the time. Yes, some people ruled this country for 8 years, I only mention Lagos to Abeokuta all the time. But I can see today, moving that road, they have already mobilized the contractor to that side. And then the work is ongoing. The rail from Abeokuta to Ibadan is ongoing. See, Chibjori, in a not simple time now, Nigerian citizens will see this president that is working. Because we expect miracle at the beginning of the administration. But this thing cannot happen overnight. What I can tell Nigeria is this. You have your voter card. If you think that the Mr. President has not done well, go to the voting polling unit and change the government. But I can tell you, me personally, and there's some people that see the good thing that this president has done, they would rather vote him in again in order for us to see the dividend of this president has given to us.
Okay.
Thank God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much. And yes, to come to you, the dividends of democracy, that's a phrase that somehow we like a lot in this society here. We are actually on the way to benefiting from those dividends of democracy, right?
Yes. First, let me go back to what Benga...
You have to be very brief because
okay.
I don't think we have more than 2 minutes.
Okay, what Benga said from Abuja, he actually mentioned the military. And of course, if there is any group of persons we need to give kudos for the development of today's democracy, the military. Because if we are discussing our democracy and how well it has flourished in the last few years, we must also salute them because they have been able to protect the sovereignty of the Nigerian state. Those issues that are ordinarily supposed to crumble the state, they've equally helped us to push them aside.
Indeed.
And this has to do with, for instance, one of the ideologies, one of the aims of the terrorists, who have invaded this country is actually to destroy the country, to divide us into pieces. But, with the kind of leadership we have on ground, particularly the military intervention, they've even be the ones, times without number, to tell us that, please, stay away from us. We want to do our job. We have been called to do this job. We don't want you to involve us in party politics.
So we have a much more loyal military, which is indeed what they're supposed to be.
Yes.
All those coups, let it be said, this was just disloyalty and mutiny.
Yes.
But the military we have nowadays is a professional and a loyal organization. I'm told that I have 1 minute, so how can I just divide this 1 minute into 20 seconds? Okay, take your 20 seconds.
Well, I think that we should just get our PVCs. If you think the government is working well, vote them back.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Well, I just want to urge Nigerians to say that we'll have 19 years uninterrupted, civilian democracy. It's good for us. We must keep it up. We must do everything to sustain it, take part, participate actively, and be truly a Nigerian.
Thank you very much. Your 20 seconds.
Well, democracy, the last 3 years under President Muhammadu Buhari has been so good for Nigeria, particularly the premium that government has been able to place on life. And I think that is what every developed society should move for. There is premium on human rights. Our government is actually protecting the life of its citizenry. And I think for us to be able to enjoy any other thing, first, we must be alive. To that, I give kudos to the government.
Thank you very much, Mr. Philip Agbese, as well as Mr. Kalajayi Adeboye, and indeed, Mr. Sabo Ode. I want to thank you, gentlemen, very much for sharing your perspectives with us. We're still in democracy season, so I will probably still keep on this whole democracy thing, maybe for the rest of this week. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing with us. So that's our program. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folare. Bye-bye for now.